Hello viewers, welcome back to BakoMaths. And to this lesson, we'll be looking at the terminologies associated with GPA and CGPA calculations. But before you jump into GPA and CGPA calculations, you must first know these terminologies, and that will serve as a pathway for you to know how to calculate your CGPA and GPA with ease. And so let's get started. And so the first terminology we'll be looking at is credit hours. So credit hours refers to the number of hours a student attends lectures for a particular course within each week for a semester. And so some courses require 3 credit hours within the week, which means that we'll be going for 3-hour lecture for that particular course. Some may have 2 credit hours. So it simply means that we're going for 2-hour lecture or 2 hours lecture for that particular course. And then the least of all is 1 credit hour. So basically, that's the meaning of credit hours. And so let's look at the practicality of this. And so this is the registration form for a mathematics student. And we can see that on our far left hand side, we have the course code, followed by the course title, and then lastly, the credit. So that's the credit hour we are talking about. And so when we look at on our far left hand side, when we look at the course code, it has the course title, Curriculum Studies in Mathematics Education. And so this Curriculum Studies in Mathematics Education has 3 credit hour or has 3 credits. And so we will be going for lectures for 3 hours within each week of the semester. Followed by the second one, that's Vectors and Mechanics. So it has the course code EMA 310. So for this Vectors and Mechanics, we'll be going for 3-hour lecture, followed by the secondary school mathematics curriculum. It also has 3 credits, up to the last one, classical mechanics. It also has 3 credits. So unfortunately, what we have here are all 3 credit hour course. But in some programs or in some registration form of other students, we could see 2 credit hours, we could see 1 credit hour. So basically, that's the meaning of credit hours, the number of hours you'll be going for lectures within each week for a particular semester. And so to our next terminology, we have total credit hours. We've already learned that credit hours are the number of hours we'll be going for lectures within each week for a particular course in the semester. And so when we say total credit hours, it's basically the sum of all the credit hours for a particular semester. And so some students may have 15 credit hours. That depends on the program that they are offering at the university. Some may also have 16 credit hours. Others may have 17 credit hours, and then 24 credit hours, and many more. And so when we look at this registration form, it consists of 8 courses, and then to each course we have 3 credit hour or 3 credit hours. And so when we sum all the credit hours for this student offering mathematics, we can see that the person will have a total credit hour or total credit hours of 24. That is what we mean by total credit hours. So to each course, it has a credit hours. So we are just going to sum all the credit hours for the respective courses, and that will give us the total credit hours. And so to our next terminology, we have grade points. Now the word grade communicates to students how well they have performed in an exam, and mostly they are being represented using letters or alphabets. And then points are the numerical values or units awarded to students based on their performance or grade. And so when we say grade point, these refers to the numerical values that are assigned to each grade. And so since this video is explained based on the GPA criteria, when a student attains an A, its numerical value associated to it is 4.0. And so when a student also attains a B+, it's worth 3.5. And so in your statement of results or in your portal where your results are, if you see B+, the numerical value associated to it is 3.5. And so when a student gets B, the value associated to B, the letter B, is 3.0, followed by C plus, that is 2.5, up to C, that is 2.0. It goes on to D plus, that is 1.5, to D, that is 1.0, and then the last one, E, that is 0.0. And so when we have a look at this person's results or this student's results, on our far left, we have the course code, followed by the course title, and then CR. Now, the CR we see here is the credit hours or the credit. And then the GD we see here is the grade. And then the last one is the grade point. And so when we take the first course, that is ASP 127A, entitled Democracy and Governance in Traditional Africa. Now, this is a 3 credit hour course, and then the student had a grade of B+. So the grade point for Democracy and Governance in Traditional Africa can be computed by multiplying the credits by the grade point associated with B+. So the numerical value associated with B+ is what we have here, that is 3.5. So to know the grade point for ASP 127, that is Democracy and Governance in Traditional Africa, we are going to multiply the credit by the numerical value associated with B+, that is 3.5. And so 3.5 times 3 is what we have here as 10.5. So this explains to us that to each course, there is a grade point. And then that grade point can be determined based on the credit and then the numerical value associated with the grade the person gets. When we move to the second course, that is CMS 108, Communicative Skills. Now, the person had A, and then A, the numerical value associated to A is 4.0. And so to know the grade point for communicative skills, we are going to multiply the credits by the numerical value associated with A, and then we get the grade point. And so we know the numerical value associated to A is 4.0 based on the 4.0 GPA criteria. And so 3 times 4 will give us 12.0, and that is the grade point for communicative skills. And so we can find the grade point for all the respective courses we see here. And to the last one, that's General Physics 2. That's the theory part of General Physics. We can see it's a 2 credit hour course. And so the person had B+. So to know the grade point for this General Physics, we just have to multiply the numerical value associated with B+. And we know B+ here is worth 3.5. And so we are just going to multiply 3.5 by 2. And now we have 7.0. And so to each course, we can find the grade point. And that is easy, as we have done. And so to our next terminology, we have GPA. When we say GPA, it's an acronym for Grade Point Average. Now, GPA can only be computed per semester. This means that GPA is done on semester basis. So within our years on campus, we'll be spending 8 semesters. And so the result that we get in each semester becomes our GPA. So after several calculations and computations, our final result that determines whether for that semester we were able to get a first class for that semester, a second class upper for that semester. That result that we depend on or we stand on to make that conclusion is what we term as grade point average. And so grade point average is the ratio of the total grade points to the total credit hours per semester. So to make this statement short, we can say that GPA is equal to total grade points divided by the total credit hours. And so if you want to know how to calculate GPA for each semester, check out in our next video, and it's well explained and you get it. So basically, this is the formula we use in calculating grade point average. And now we have CGPA. We've already spoken about GPA, and we said GPA is an acronym for grade point average. And so the C in CGPA refers to the cumulative grade point average. CGPA can be computed for at least 2 semesters. So GPA is based on semester basis, but CGPA is based on 2 or more semesters. And then CGPA is calculated for the total semesters a student has taken a course at the university. And so if you want to know your CGPA, you're just going to sum all the courses you've taken at the university and divide by the total credit hours you've taken at the university. So CGPA is calculated by taking the total grade points a student has taken or has earned in all courses and dividing it by the total number of credit hours taken. And so to make this one simpler, we have CGPA to be equal to total grade points of all courses taken divided by total credit hours of all courses taken. And so our final class at the end of our study in the university, that is after the 4-year program, what determines that we are a first class student, a second class upper student, a second class lower student, a third class or a pass student depends on the CGPA. And so that is done by taking the total grade points of all courses, either being semester basis or 2 or more semesters. We are just going to add everything and divide by the total credit hours of all the courses you've taken at the university. And so CGPA are mostly used to classify us as first class students or second class upper students or any other class. When I say any other class, I mean the second class lower, the third class, and then the pass class. So that determines our final class at the end of our 4-year study in our various universities. And so you can check out for a complete guide on how to calculate your CGPA in our next video as well. And so move on to our next terminology. And then in our next terminology, we have the grading scale. Now, since this video is recorded based on the 4.0 GPA criteria and then has a raw score of 80 to 100, we classify a student who gets a raw score of 80 to 100 as A, and then the grade point associated to that A is 4.0, and then its interpretation is excellent. In the same way, when a student gets 75 to 79, the grade associated within this range is B+, and then the student gets a grade point of 3.5, and then we classify that student as a very good student. It follows up to the last one, that is 0 to 49. If a student gets a max of 0 to 49, now this marks comprise of the exams and then the continuous assessment. And so when we sum your exams and your continuous assessment and you fall within this range, the grade you get is E, and then the grade point associated to E is 0, and then you are being classified as a failed student. So thanks for watching. Kindly like, comment, subscribe, and share. BakoMaths, thinking beyond infinity.